All right, now I'm going to echo a little bit about what Mark said at the beginning. It's going to be, this isn't just me. You guys are going to be in here for a little bit of time, so there's a couple seats up here. I won't bite you, I promise that. It's early in the morning, but it looks like we have some people that we'll call more experienced. I don't have a very good back anymore, and so I like to sit down. So I'm going to encourage anybody to come on up to the front, and we got our coffees back there. We're feeling good. It's kind of a tight space. I took my coat off because I was getting a little hot. So I know some of you are going to be a little warm. I just want to make sure that if we're standing over there, we're good to go. Good to go? All right, because we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's probably about 7 or 8 seats. So, feel free to come down at any point in time when your knees start to lock up, back starts to lock up. I will not be offended, I promise. Because that's usually me. I try to gut it out. I want to try to pride this thing up and think I can just will this thing in. And eventually, after shifting my weight back and forth from leg to leg, after about 45 minutes, I'll usually submit and sit down and find a place. So, like I said, I will not be offended. You will not disrupt me. I have 4 young children who could care less what I have to say. When my wife puts me on the radio or puts me on television, they want to watch their own stuff and they want to listen to music, so they don't care about Dad. So, like I said, I will not be offended by any stretch. Come on down at any point in time and have a seat. So, like Mike was saying, I'm from Lancaster, Ohio. I went to Ohio State. I first got here in 2002, came back in 2013, and now I work here, like everyone in this room, in one area or another. And so I want to, start by asking a question a little bit. How many of you here worked for 5 years or less for Ohio State? Let's throw some hands up. We're going to get some activity going. I know it's early. 5 years or less. How many people have worked 10 years or less here? 10 years or less. All right. We got anybody that's worked 15 years or less? How about, I guess, 15 years or more? I apologize. 15 years or more. There we go. Going the wrong way. 20 years or more. Okay. Now we're starting to get, these hands are a little sparse. 25 years or more. Okay. Do we have anybody that's worked 30 years or more for the Ohio State University? All right. Congratulations. I personally would like to thank you for that because, it's sad now that I'm this old. Ohio State's been part of my life longer than it has not. I'll be turning 36, so I got here when I was 19, and so it'll be 18 years on one end, 18 years on the other, and from this point on, come August 1st when I started up at Ohio State in camp, Ohio State's been a part of my life now for more than it hasn't been. And so I love this place. Through all of its flaws, as everybody here, the longer you've been here, you know the flaws that it has. It's a giant beast. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lack of communication sometimes. There's all kinds of issues that you're going to have at any big organization. Like, that's just the reality of it. And, you try to mitigate those things the best you can. But like, the thing about Ohio State and why I love this place, it's not the buildings, it's the people that are here. And that's what makes organizations special. That's what makes them tick. And so I wanted to ask that question because I want to make sure that very few people probably get thanked for the job they do, and their what they do, the service that they provide. And so when I was here, I had a great time. Not every day was good. There were some days that were better than others. In undergrad, when I came back later, there were some days that were better than others. Some of the same problems still existed in 2002 and 2013. And now that I'm over at Fisher today, when I walk in the building and I look at it, I'm like, this was an issue in 2004, this was an issue in 2013, and now in 2017, there's still the same problems. Whether it's the roof that continually leaks in the same spot and you wonder why the heck the building was designed this way, because this is something that will never be able to be fixed, and you just have to knock the top off or figure something else out, or one of the other many issues that you have. But that's the reality of it. But Ohio State, and let me ask you this question. How many of you enjoy working for Ohio State? Okay, well, hey, that feels pretty good. We got a lot. I enjoy it. I love it here. It's something I'm excited about. And I didn't always love it each and every day when I was a player. I didn't love it each and every day when I came back to school. And I don't always love it now that I'm working here. There's certain things that are always going to be issues, like I said. But it's the people that you're around. And so most of you work here because a lot of you are probably from the state of Ohio or grew up in this region. And, there's a certain pride that comes with being part of Ohio State. Like, I enjoy telling people that I went to school here a couple times, and then now that I get to work here and give back. Because no matter what your job is and what specific role you have, you're part of something bigger. And so let me ask something. What is your job, sir? Restoration, construction tech. Maintenance. All right. We're going to come back to that, okay, because that's what you do on a small level, okay? So, like I said, Ohio State, there's a much bigger mission here. And for all of its flaws, and I keep saying that because every large organization is going to have them, there's never going to be perfection. When you have a lot of people involved, I have no idea how many people this school employs, but it's in the tens of thousands, considering we have a room here that's 500 people strong, packed in here, and it's getting a little warm, and it's only going to get warmer. So keep drinking your coffee to stay awake. But it's going to be, there's always going to be some issues with it. But I love this place. It's a big part of it. So one of the things that we're going to talk about and throw out, people throw out these terms like culture. What does that mean? Leadership from the top. What do these things mean? And how do you create those things? And when you start to look at stuff, I'll be able to testify to my experiences, both growing up in Lancaster, Ohio, being a part of Ohio State, playing in the NFL, and then some of the stuff now, and creating the type of teams and environments that I wanted to be a part of, that I felt like we always had success with because of what we were able to get done and what we were able to do. But a lot of that comes from a little bit of yourself, how much pride you have, where you're at, what you're doing, and then there's a big piece of it is like who you are as well. Like, what are some of your goals? What are some of your missions? But back to where my experiences are, because I think you need to know a little bit about a person. If I'm going to sit here and talk to you, I'm from Lancaster, Ohio, like it was said. My dad, both of my parents are from there. My mom actually went to school here back in the 70s. Both of them are teachers and coaches. And so that was what my life was like. Always getting educated, always getting coached up. And, when you say parents always know best, I mean, they were going to pound that into my head no matter what. And there were a lot of things that I didn't want to hear. There's a lot of things I didn't necessarily always agree with. And when you're 17 years old and you think you know it all, like that's the best part of aging. Like you realize each and every day how little you knew the day before, because there's always going to be a problem. I think you probably apex with your intelligence probably at 18 or 19 years old, because you haven't lived long enough to realize you don't have all the answers. And so at that point, like it's just kind of moving down the line. But I grew up there. I had 3 younger brothers. We lived in a very, very competitive household. And I always knew like some things that I wanted to try to do in my life. I wanted to try to play college football. Like that's a huge goal. I was a young, skinny kid growing up. Didn't think I'd ever be able to do that. And it was something that my dad was able to do. And so I kind of had a little bit of a roadmap for him. And so there was things sometimes that they kind of pushed down upon us. And I didn't even realize this at the time, but there was things that were kind of shoved down there that I was going to hear then the rest of my life. And start talking about habits, what you do, how you do it, why you do it, all huge questions. And then also, your work is a reflection of you. And so, when you're playing sports and you're working and doing these things, like one of the great things that coaches would always tell me, and it's easy, like in that realm, because everybody's got the resume. You go to get a job, you turn it in, you have a piece of paper and it talks about everything you did. Well, when you work in a job where you're providing a service, or when you work or when you're actually building things, or when something is all being documented, that essentially becomes your resume. And so in athletics and sports, like your film is your resume. And so my dad would tell me, when you're playing or if you're practicing, at any point in time, when someone comes to watch you, they may only see a small snippet of what you're doing, like a real small sample slice. They're going to look at that, and that's going to be what you are to them. And regardless of everything you've done the rest of that day, the rest of that month, the rest of that year, your career, that's going to be their first impression of you. This is going to be who you are. Your resume is in your film. It's a reflection of you. And it's no different. We grew up on a farm-ish deal, so we had some things that we would do, like hammering fence posts, and we had some cows and different things, fixing stuff around the farm, like the best buildings and things, the best that I could. I'm not nearly as skilled as any of my brothers. But my dad would always give us tasks. He's like, okay, he'd come, and at the end of it, it's something I constantly get in arguments now with my wife. I'm like, if you're going to do it, we're going to do it right. Because my dad would always come and analyze all of our stuff at the end. And we had to put in a fence line. We're looking down here. My brother and I, we'd walk. He's like, hey, make sure they're 6 feet apart, whatever it is. Walk 6 feet, put a fence post in. Walk 6 feet, put a fence post in. Never once did we think like, hey, let's go back and look at where we're going to make sure these things are straight. So we did it all. My dad comes here, and we're like, I'm feeling pretty good. Like, I'm really proud of this. I'm like 16 years old. We've got the auger out, putting in up and down, riding that thing up and down. Shoulders are burning. I'm like, hey, the poles are all straight. Everything looks good when we're looking at it front. My dad comes down the side, and he looks at this. He's like, it looks like a bunch of drunks did this thing. He's like, look at that. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, it looks great. He's like, come over here and look. He's like, how am I supposed to string this thing? He's like, it's all back and forth. Because we're going to have to, if you put this up like this, in a couple of years, we're going to have to redo it all because it's not going to have the tension that it needs, and it's not going to be able to hold up over the long term. He's like, so you got to do things right the first time. And he goes, if this is the only thing that I ever saw that you did, I would never hire you to do another thing again. He's like, who the heck's going to want to believe that? Like, who's going to think that you have the capability of doing a job right? So take pride in everything you do each and every day, because that's going to be who you become to people, regardless of whatever it is in your life, whether it's school, work, athletics, whatever it might be. He's like, this is going to be who you are to someone. And so you have to understand that this is how they're going to judge you. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You may have done it great 30 times before this. You may do it great 30 times after it. But if someone walks up at any point in the day, and everybody has bad days, believe me. I got the worst of them. But I'm an emotional wreck half the time. But you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad, but at any point in time when someone goes and checks on what you do and they're looking at it and think, okay, this is going to be a reflection of what you are. This essentially becomes your resume. Maybe that's fair. Maybe it's not a great sample size, but that's going to be the reality of it. And that's one of the things I learned really young, that you have to take responsibility. You have to take the onus for what it is you're trying to do and where it is you're trying to be. And that came out of developing great habits each and every day, because it wasn't always easy. I mean, like I said, everybody has bad days. And so you're going to need to be able to push through that, understand it, have the self-awareness. And this was another big thing that was driven down, is like, hey, understanding the self-awareness, what you're good at, what you're not. Like I said, I'm an incredibly emotional person. That gives me some like really good aspects in life, very passionate about things. I get excited about things really easily. The other problem about that is, like, my bad days are atrocious. So my good days feel really awesome. Bad days feel really terrible. Terrible person to be around when that's the case. So I try to understand that, try to mitigate a little bit of that, to know how I impact the people around me, because I'm a little bit like a tornado on those days. On my positive days, try to push out as much energy as I possibly can. But having the self-awareness to know what I'm good at, what I'm not, having the wherewithal to maybe ask for some help when I need it, and understand, like, that's going to be a little bit of who I am and understanding who I am. So trying to be self-aware, trying to reflect on that, and understanding how that's going to impact me. And each and every day you wake up, you move forward. And this is where, a little bit I want to circle back, to kind of how you view, your job. And it was something that Coach Tressel was like, he was really good at. Any Coach Tressel fans in the house here? I mean, Urban's fantastic. I love Urban. Coach Tressel's my coach. And as much as I hated him at points in time when I was here, if you don't hate somebody at some point in time that you work for, they're probably not pushing you. And so I always took that, like, later on, I'm like, you know what, I appreciate the things that he did and how he kind of drove and instilled this stuff into us, because on like a daily basis, it could suck at times. But the reality is, like, change is uncomfortable. It's going to force you to grow. And so that's why so many people in this world are reluctant to change. When you have to go do something different, it doesn't feel very good. It feels terrible. You've never done it that way. There's a little bit of anxiety of why we're trying to do something different, why we're stretching ourselves out of our comfort zone, when all of a sudden, hey, here's the new mission, here's the new game plan. I know we've done it like this for the last 6 months, the last 6 years, heck, maybe the last 16 years, but we found a better way to do it. And it's going to not feel very good because you're not experienced with it. You don't like it. And that's why you have the emotion. Your emotions are powerful. They're going to be able to push you through that change. But it's going to be tough. And so Coach Tress was always just like squeezing down on us. How do you try to stretch and expand? Push out into other areas. Because, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It didn't feel all that good. But we knew that he cared at the top. We knew that he was investing in us, which was really important. Because when people invest, there we go, bad to the bone. I like that. That's good. That's good. That's good. But, Coach Tress was going to invest in us. And he was going to try to stretch us. and make us a little bit better each and every day. And so that wasn't always necessarily going to feel good, but we knew that it was going to be important to be able to have success. And so I loved, how we would do that. We'd sit down and we have these meetings and talk about goals and some of our greater purposes. And so like that stuff to an 18, 19-year-old sucked. It sounded tedious. It was monotonous. It wasn't great. I was a million things better that I'd like to do with my time than be able to just sit here and talk about where I'm going to be in 20 years. But I think that was important because, it's not just you want to focus on the day, but you also want to have like a long-term vision, a long-term plan of where you want to be. And you want to know the people that are around you are going to invest in you. And so it was a big message. Like Woody Hayes would say, like you win with people. People are Ohio State. People are any industry. The buildings outside, like those things are great, but it's the people that fill them that make the difference. And so you win with people, and they never care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so he would say things we didn't necessarily like. He would push back on stuff we didn't necessarily agree with, we didn't enjoy. But when you knew the guy at the top was caring and they were trying to invest in you, trying to make you better, show you a pathway that, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to be able to have more success, which I know some of the things that are going on right here. Like that meant something to me. And so that's going to help push through a little bit of the tough days because you want to have this overarching vision, which is good, and you want to be able to live in the day. But the problem is you wake up, what is today, May 15th, May 14th? 15th, May 15th, 2019. It's easy to get drugged down. Like, is this any different than May 15th, 2018? May 15th, 2017? I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the weather was like last year in Ohio. Maybe it was 60 and nice. Maybe it was 45 and rainy. Maybe it was 90 and even a little bit scorching. But trying to balance the impact of this day versus the impact of the long term. So you want to try to connect those things. You want to try to figure out, hey, what's our ultimate goals here? Where are we trying to move? Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to achieve? Like, those are some of the big picture things that we're working on. And then when you get into the monotony of every day, and it's just another day on the week, you find everybody, and everybody's guilty of this. And if you say you're not, I'm going to look at you, you're a liar, okay? Because everybody's guilty of this, where you think, hey, I've got something coming up, and you just look at your calendar and you become a box checker, all right? Cross off May 15th because I've got something this weekend. Maybe it's a vacation coming up. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's so many days till a review, you get a promotion, whatever it might be. Maybe it's so many days till your kids go back to school in the summer. Who knows? Everybody's got boxes that they're trying to check. And you get caught up more in checking the boxes than you do in trying to figure out what you're trying to do on that day. And I've been fortunate enough, like I talked about Jim Tressel, got to know Coach Meyer really closely. I played for two Hall of Fame coaches at the NFL level, and Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells. They've won 8 Super Bowls between them. And one of the things Bill Parcells used to always kind of hit on us is like, hey, what are we doing out here? Are we just running plays, like aimlessly running things? Or are we trying to get better and work at something each and every day? And I had awesome vets around me when I played because I could get caught up in the monotony. And if you think like it's great, sports are awesome, probably got some people in here that love football. It sounds good. But you get caught up in, okay, here's another week. Here's another team. Playing Indiana, playing Wisconsin, playing the Eagles, playing the Redskins. And you just begin to get caught up. We do the same thing on Wednesday. We do the same thing on Thursday. Same thing on Friday. Saturday this. Sunday play. Recover Monday. Start to move forward on Tuesday and move forward. And you just get kind of caught up in the weeks. Caught up in the days. And it's like the same pattern over and over and over again. And about 6 weeks in, I finally realized, I feel like I'm just like a mouse on a wheel. I'm running on a loop. And Parcells would always hammer, well, what are we doing out here? We just running plays? And I had a couple of great veteran players around me. They're like, listen, man, pick something each and every day. Try to get a little bit better at it. He's like, that's going to allow you to, number one, forget about the fact that this is what we're doing and we have 14 more weeks of this or whatever it is, but it's going to give you a little bit of purpose to that day. Because when you're done with that day, you'll be able to look back and say, well, did I get a little bit better at this? I know that I've got all these big things going on, and we're doing this on Wednesday, this on Thursday. We have this ultimate goal. But it applies to everything in life. So you just don't become a box checker. You're just not checking off lists. You're trying to focus on one thing a little bit to try to get better. And so that ultimately when that day is reviewed by someone else, they'll be able to look at that and say, okay, this is a reflection of who you are. And did I get a little better today? Yeah, I probably did. Or maybe I didn't. And so what am I going to do? Am I going to go back and work on the same thing tomorrow? And it would be real small, minuscule things. Like these weren't massive objectives. You save the massive objectives for like long-term stuff. But it was each and every day refining your craft, trying to become a little bit better at what you're doing. So that if someone stops by or someone checks out what you're doing on any given day, that's going to be a reflection of your work, and you're going to have some pride and be like, this is the best I have. No one ever wants to ask, and this is the worst feeling in the world, because this is very similar to like a team meeting room in football. When you have a bad play, and everybody watches, anybody football fans in here? Maybe some. I mean, it is the state of Ohio. I don't care if it's Ohio State, NFL, if you're a long-suffering Browns fan, Bengals fan, whatever it might be. Everybody watches this. I don't care what if you like any sports at all. You watch a bad play happen. Here's the thing. It's done and over with for you. That player, they're thinking about that thing for the next 24 hours, because you know what they're going to do the next day? They're come and sit in a room like this. They're going to have a coach sitting there, and they're just going to run this thing over and over again. And sometimes they don't even say anything. They just sit there and look at it. And you feel like you're about 3 years old, 4 years old when your parents just come in and you did something. They don't even say anything. They just look back at you, look back at you, look. And you know, like, this is bad. Like, this is really bad. The only difference is that when you're older, you know it's coming. You start counting down the plays, and in your mind you're thinking, well, maybe they'll just look over this. Maybe they'll gloss over it. That ain't happening. They look at everything. They're paid to evaluate it. Their job depends on your success, and so they're going to sit there, and it feels bad at the time, but they're going to run that thing back, and it's in front of God and everybody as you're sitting here. Everybody can see it. Sometimes they'll just eventually throw a pointer on it in case someone didn't pick it up, and then they're going to start to eviscerate you on what you're doing wrong. And somewhere through that point, a lot of times, there's going to be some coaching, which is going to be hopefully constructive criticism about how to do it better. And so you kind of sift through and strip down all of the terrible things, the profanity-laced tirade of why this happened and how this can never happen again. And there's going to be like some small nuggets in there that you're going to be able to take away, hopefully, like put in your pocket. All right, I know they called me X, Y, and Z, and I'm this, that, and the other, and I hope my mom never hears them say that about me. But in that like 2.5-minute rant, there was like 15 seconds where, hey, you need to do this so that doesn't happen again. And if you're in this situation, try to do it this way so that you never have to worry about it again. And then they go on to this, and eventually the play ends and it moves on. But that's where you get better. And during that time, it's uncomfortable as hell. Like, it feels atrocious as you're sitting there because the spotlight is on you, and you know it's something that you should have done better, and maybe you didn't even know how to do it. But you're hoping that the people around you are going to be the resources and the tools that are going to be able to give you those things so that doesn't ever happen again. So that when you're sitting here looking at this big projector where you're like half of your real size in life and it's so big and outlined and everybody's staring at it, that you don't have to worry about that again. You're not going to be under the spotlight, under the microscope, because the next time it comes around, you may hopefully have done a great job. And this is the problem that we have in society. And it's a problem with human beings in general. We're much more apt to focus on the negative than on the positive. And how bad of a job you did here, what we need to improve there, why wasn't this better? And it's up to a lot of people who evaluate things to make sure that they say, hey, this wasn't very good, but we can do this a lot. But this was great. We need more of this and less of this. And that's what coaching is, that's what constructive criticism is, and those are things that are very important. And so when you're sitting there being evaluated, try to pull the positives out, understand it. Some of the best coaches I ever had, we called them a crap sandwich. I mean, they give you a nice piece of bread. We played a good game. We did some of these things well, good. All right, here's all the terrible stuff. This is why we're awful and we're going to get beat, or maybe we did get beat, but if we won, here's all the terrible things we did. We'll run through those. You guys are awful. We need to work harder. That's code for our practices. And this is the best thing that I've ever heard someone in leadership say, like, that's on me. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. That's code for I'm going to ride you until it doesn't happen again, okay? Like, they take ownership, like, oh, that's good. That's not my fault. That's my superiors. That's my coach's fault. Well, that just means when they say hey, I'm going to be leaning on you now to make sure this doesn't happen again because I failed you. And so Then they're going to wrap it up, and they're going to put a little bow on the end and say, okay, but then we did X, Y, and Z well, and let's try to move forward. So you leave feeling positive. But it's important to always have great high-level communication about that and understand what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and why it needs to be done. Like the clarity of mission and the clarity of purpose and the communication with everybody. The best teams that I've ever been a part of, I've been a part of some really good ones. I got a chance to play, even though Mike wouldn't say it because he's an Eagles fan. I played for the Cowboys. We won a couple NFC East championships. I played for the Patriots, had a nice playoff run. I played for even the Lions when we made the playoffs one year. So I've been fortunate to be part of some really good teams and some really great players. And the best players and the best teams that I was always a part of, it wasn't the fact that they necessarily always had the best talent. Talent's a big part of it. But talent is never enough to be able to just have success and be operated at a high level. The thing that you need is you need to have a great understanding of who you are, a great understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, but even more important than that, you need to have a great level of communication. Because communication around you with the people that you work with, that's going to allow you to be able to be better than what you could have been on your own. Like it's a very, very difficult piece to understand because so many of us like to just become myopic and focus solely on our jobs and how can we do better and to make sure that nobody's going to be on us. And we kind of cease to have this like collaborative feeling and this collaborative spirit. And so some of my best friends I end up playing with, and some of the best people that I work with now, like we have great relationships. And the reality is you don't necessarily have to like everyone you work with. I mean, another lie, like if everybody in here tells me they love everybody they work with, I'll know you're full of crap as well because that's just not happening. Like there's nobody, you don't even like all your family members probably, so why the heck would you like everybody you work with? Like that's the reality of it. Everybody's got some family members they don't like, and the only reason they put up with them is because they have some sort of blood relation or they married into them. So like you may hate your sister-in-law, hate your brother-in-law, hate your father, mother-in-law, whatever it is. Maybe you hate your brother, sister, person, whatever it is. They're one of their kids because they do whatever. Like that's the reality of it. So you're always going to have people around you that you don't like. You're always going to have people around you who feel like suck the energy out of you. I mean, anybody ever been around someone like that? Where you're walking around, yeah. They feel like there's people that just suck the energy out of you. We call those juice vampires. They just are going to feast upon your energy because they're so negative, and they're going to want to suck it right out of you, and they're really miserable. So instead of seeing you be happy, they're going to want to bring you down to their level and make you miserable like them because that's going to feel good because then I don't have to look at somebody and feel good about it. And here's an even better point. If you don't have anybody around you that's like that, then you might be that person. You might be the person that everybody, like, when they're walking down the hall, they just kind of turn and maybe get a coffee, even though their cup's already full. They're just kind of like fake topping it off right there. Like, you start looking like there's not even any bubbles at the top. Like, they're not putting any coffee in there at all. They just don't want to talk to you. So don't be that person. And like I talked about at the beginning, have a little self-awareness. If nobody wants to talk to you when you're walking around, it's probably because you are that guy or gal. Like, you're the juice vampire that nobody wants to be around because you find a way to make their lives miserable. And they just want to try to go through an entire day without seeing or having as little interaction with you as possible. So don't ever be that person. And everybody knows, like I said, everybody knows that person. And it's a terrible thing. And so try to just be positive with them. Try to help them. If you are that person, have a long look in the mirror. Realize, hey, maybe nobody wants to talk to me. Maybe the problem with me is me. That's like the person that gets divorced 5 or 6 times. Like they never found the right person. Well, maybe the right person always found them, and then they might have been the real issue with that. Like so, understand a little bit. If nobody likes you, and you think no, then you probably have something wrong with yourself, and not something that's not fixable. Something that needs to be a twist and a shift in attitude and understanding, so that you can be able to communicate better with them. But the best people I was always around were always the best communicators. They always were able to articulate what it is we were trying to do, how we were going to get there, and then be able to communicate that on a high level, a long-term thing, but then also on a short and daily piece as well. Because the long-term stuff, man, it doesn't get you going. Like, it doesn't get you going every day. You've got to figure it out. Like, you can say it to yourself, but then you've got to figure out, okay, what am I going to do today? But the clarity of mission, the communication, incredibly important. No great organization will ever be good without communication. Because if you're not talking to the people around you and what you need and how you can help them and how you can facilitate with them, like, it's not going to work, no matter how good you are at anything. And so I looked at some of the players that I was with, some of the coaches that I've been with, and their level of communication and what they're able to do. Like, those were the people that always got the most out of me. And it was such an important piece because we'd start out these morning meetings. Like, I know everybody in here, this feels like it sucks. You know, phones are going off and it's all great, all well and good. Believe me, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. Like, it just shows that you guys are really important people. You know, I don't get phone calls anymore like before 8 in the morning. You know, before 9 o'clock in the morning. If it is my wife telling me my kids are acting like fools. And so it's stuff that I don't want to deal with anyway. By the way, most phone calls that come in before 9 o'clock probably aren't phone calls you want to take anyway, because it's never good news. No one's calling you at 7:30 in the morning telling you you're getting a promotion, getting a raise, or you won the lottery. Like, those things usually don't happen. It's usually all negative. So I'll understand that the people that are coming in, they're getting these phone calls, it's not the best thing in the world. But, you know, the communication piece, understanding, you know, where you're at and the people that are around you, like how to better communicate with them, how to elevate each other, is so vitally important, because you understand, like, you're part of a greater ecosystem. And that's why I asked at the beginning, like, how many of you enjoy working for Ohio State? Like, you tell people you work at Ohio State, everybody knows Ohio State. And Ohio is the 7th largest state in the country. I want to say there's like 11 million people in the state of Ohio. Probably the overwhelming majority of people in the state of Ohio have a strong, like, they have strong feelings toward Ohio State. You go to Toledo, you got some Michigan fans. I mean, there's people that went to some different MAC schools. Maybe, you know, you got some Notre Dame fans sprinkled in and out here. But most of the people in Ohio love Ohio State. And they think it's odd. Like, you tell them you work for Ohio State in any capacity at all, it's going to be a great deal, because they love the athletic teams. They always, you know, have all the marketing slogans, but for, all these things. Like, Ohio State's done a lot of great things for me. And so on the days that I hate Ohio State, I try to remember all the good stuff so I don't become an angry beast that just drags everybody else down, like I was talking about earlier. And so I try to always remember those things. And so when I talked earlier, like, what it is you do, you know, what is your job title, what it is you do on a daily basis. Like, yeah, you may do this job or you may do that job, but the reality is everybody in this room and most of the people here in the entire university, you know, the med center is probably a little bit different because, you know, they have an educational piece and a health piece, but like, you're facilitating the opportunity to help people graduate college. Like, that's the overarching mission. Whatever your role in that is, that's going to be your role. The overarching mission is that's a great thing. It's the land-grant institution of the state of Ohio. It is one of the most successful universities in the country. The reason it is that is because of the people that work here. Not because of the buildings, not because of the stadium, the arenas, and all these things. And believe me, we got beautiful, beautiful buildings and facilities. But it's the people that operate them. It's the people that run them. It's the people that work in here that be able to make it operate and work. And what they're able to provide and the opportunities that you're able to give everyone else. And so when you look at that, understand, like, this is my role in this. And I need to be able to do this the very best that I can, because it's going to help the people that are around me that hopefully you like. Not all of them. You're like most of them. I want to make their job a little bit easier by doing my job the best that I can, so that I can continue to push and I can continue to grow and give people the best opportunities that they can have. But understanding, like, this is just a small slice of what it is that we're going to be able to do and how it is we're going to be able to move forward. So the communication, being able to talk to people, one another. One of the great things that Bill Belichick did with us, this guy's, it's not even a debate anymore. He's the greatest NFL football coach of all time. If you're not a football player, like, some people probably like the Patriots back there. If you're a Browns fan, you probably wonder how we even screwed that up. Like, we actually had this guy as our coach, and we chose to fire him, and then he goes on to do this, and now he wins 6 Super Bowls, and, you know, we haven't even won a playoff game since he left. That is true. He was the last coach for the Browns to win a playoff game, and, you know, they're happy to run him out of town in '95 or whatever it was. But one of the things he did with us during our off-season practices is, you know, we have this new team. You're bringing people together, and it's a big group. You know, you have like 90 guys in the off-season. So it's a fairly large group. You have all your coaches, your training staff. You're talking about probably 120 people that are assembled each and every year. And the team changes. Like, it rolls every year in the NFL. You probably have 35, 40% turnover. So you're always trying to learn new people, and it can be tough. And so you get caught up in the fact, like, I don't know if this person's going to be in here week. They may cut them, bring somebody else in. And you begin to lose some of that team element. And so you just kind of you become tied up in only your job. The problem is your job is a lot of times dependent on how good somebody else does their job. And so how many times in here has someone shown up to work and they look at what they have to do and they're like, son of a gun. Whoever it is that was here before me left me a freaking mess. And now I've got to deal with it. This is now on my plate. And so you have two choices at that point. You can either take that mess, digest it. It's like I call it like hugging a rose bush. Hopefully the roses are pretty at the top, but you're going to get like a lot of blood all over these things. The thorns are going to cut you up. It's not going to feel good. So sometimes you got to hug that rose bush, accept the trash that you've been given, say, okay, I'm going to try to give it to the next person a little bit better than I got it. It's easy to say, hey, I can just pass the buck. I'm here for however many hours, and then the person has to take over this after me. They can deal with it later because you know what? Why should I care? Because this is how I got it. The person didn't care about it in front of me. And so you can do that. That's all right. But, do you really feel good about that? Like, I honestly wouldn't. And so it's the same thing when you're playing, as a part of a team, especially football. You have 11 guys on the field, 11 players out there where your job is wholly dependent upon the person next to you, the person in front of you, and the person behind you. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, it's going to be harder for you to do what you're supposed to do. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, the person behind you or beside you, they're going to have a more difficult time doing their job. And so talking about the expectations, what it is you need from me. How can I help you? What can I do to make your job easier? And you know what, when you ask somebody that, usually they'll tell you. And then usually they'll take that and they'll say, hey, what do you need from me? How can I help your job? And you begin to get the culture of communication and collaboration. And so Bill, to help foster this one year, my last year in New England, I think he does it almost every year, he got sick of people like, hey, making adjustments, making checks on the field, yelling stuff out. And he's like, who are you talking to? Well, I'm talking to that guy. Well, what the hell is that guy's name? Like, what's his name? You stutter over and he's like, 56, 47, 95, 13, just yelling out. Like, no, he took all the jerseys off. Like, we were probably the only team, it's the only time I've ever seen this done, is the offense just wore blue shirts, the defense wore gray shirts. I felt like I was back at Lancaster in like 8th grade. Like, we didn't even have jerseys. This is the NFL, and he took all our jerseys away. He's like, you guys don't get them. We're not calling people by numbers anymore. He's going to sit there like, what's this person's name? What's this person's name? You need to know because it's part of your job. Because if you know their name, you're going to care a little bit more about them. And when you communicate with them, you're going to put their name on it. You're going to talk to them, and you're going to understand what they need from you. They're going to understand what you need from them, and you're going to be able to move forward like that. But it was an unbelievable testament to figuring out, hey, everybody needs to know each other's job. Everybody needs to understand it. You need to know the person. You may not like them, and there's a good chance you might not, but you at least need to respect them, and they need to respect you. So they'll be able to hand something to you that's the expectation level that you need. So we strip those jerseys off, and so when you talk to somebody, you call them by their name and not just, hey, this person here or that person there, or a hey, you. You learn their name, and it's because there's nothing more. I say this because I'll butcher names all the time, but in the reality, your name is kind of what you are, and so people need to learn your names. You need to be it's the ultimate sign of respect is learning somebody's name around you, and so if you can learn on that, they're going to respect you a little bit more, hopefully, and maybe they'll help you a little bit more. And it's great in the NFL because it's such a blend, like football. It's such a blend of cultures. Guys come from all over the country. They come from all different backgrounds. Look all different, and you have to all of a sudden just jam this thing together and make some sort of bowl of stew when you've got who knows the ingredients that are coming in. And so it's so important to be able to do that, to be able to have the culture of communication, collaboration, and learning your craft each and every day. I talked about that a little bit earlier. And that's one thing, that Bill used to talk about every day, like finding a piece to get better, but refining your craft, becoming a professional. Like, is this just something you show up and do every day, or are you trying to get a little bit better at it so that becomes ultimately your resume and where you're at and what you're working towards? Because when you're doing that, the people around you, if there's something that you have a deficiency in, if you've communicated well, you've collaborated with them and tried to help them before, odds are they're going to help you to get a little bit better. And that's going to be a big piece. That's a huge piece of trying to be able to be more successful, not just as like an overarching group or team or a market. It's so important to be able to have that at an individual level because that's going to help you improve. It's going to help you to be better. And lastly, like the clear expectations. So oftentimes, and I know anybody's probably been here, when you look around and you ask somebody to do something for you, and then you show up and you take a look at it, and it's not done at all how it should be done. Can someone raise their hand if that's happened? I don't care if it's happened in work, happened in life, happened with your kids, happened with your husband or wife. Hey, I need this done. You show up, this is not how it should be done at all. As a matter of fact, this is not going to be more work for me because I'm going to have to undo everything that you did before we did it. I just told my wife that the other day. I wish you wouldn't have touched this at all because now it's going to be more work for me. It's really my fault because I didn't lay out the clear level of expectations of what it should have been. And so giving someone clear expectations, that's going to eliminate that. It's going to eliminate the redos. It's going to eliminate the misunderstandings. If you communicate and collaborate with people, you're working on your craft every day, and you're doing all these things, it's going to lead to having clear expectations because everybody's going to be under the same pretense of knowing what's expected and knowing what they need to do each and every day to get better. And, you know, we talk and joke and laugh a little bit about this, but like I said, your daily work at any given point in time becomes your resume in life. And when people see those things, it's going to be very important for them to, you know, when they look at it, they may never see another part of it. That's what you're going to be judged off of. But those things ultimately there, like they begin to lead to some different stuff, but like swirling around that's what becomes kind of your culture. Culture is going to be created, whether you like it or not. Like the culture around you. And like everybody wants to have this overarching culture in their business, in their workplace. But the reality is there can be little subcultures around because especially in a big place like this, it's going to happen. It happens in sports. It happens in other walks of life. It happens in other businesses. The larger the institution, the more division it's going to have and the more little subcultures are going to be created within each and every one. And so you try to control what's going on around you. But the collaboration, the communication, the working on your craft, honing your craft, the clear expectations, those things inherently create that culture. And is that a culture that you want to be around? Because you're creating it each and every day. Like culture isn't a good thing or a bad thing. It is what it is. So if you created something where you want to be a part of it because you've invested everything into it, the other people around you are going to want to be a part of it too. And so I've been on teams where I kind of dreaded going into work every day because I didn't really like the people that I worked with. I didn't necessarily know what I was supposed to do each and every day. I didn't have people that were trying to help me. I didn't feel like I had the support around me. And then I've been on teams that have been fantastic where each and every day I knew what I was supposed to do. I had people that were going to help me. They were going to communicate clearly. And everybody collectively was going to try to work to get a little bit better at what they had to do. But that goes back, like knowing who you are, the people that are around you, knowing what they're going to be a part of, how important it is for them, the passion that they're going to have for it. And fortunately, like I would like to think that if you get to work at a place like this, you know, Ohio State's a pretty great place. It instills positive emotion in a lot of people. Like should be a fairly high degree of passion that's going to come from the people that are around you when you tell people you work here, and that ultimately is going to kind of drive the purpose of everything that everyone's doing. Like, you're going to have some overarching purpose. Everybody comes to work to be able to, you know, have a paycheck, to be able to provide for their families or to do the things in life in this world that they want to do, and that's great. That's all well and good. But I'm telling you right now, like people talked about playing in the NFL, and you know there was times you're fortunate to get compensated really well. But I mean, there were days during training camp where my body was beaten up, and I didn't feel good, and I felt like Mike with 2 fake hips and a fake knee. I'm trying to get out of bed in the morning, I'm hesitating as I sit up. And I can feel my back kind of hurt, and then I wait to kind of put one foot down or the other to see, okay, which ankle is going to hurt, which knee is going to hurt. You know, is it a hamstring, whatever it is? Like, what part of my body parts are going to ail? And I would like sit there and look at the ground, sitting in bed, like dreading putting my feet down, understanding that hey, this is going to stink. I know there's going to be something. The question just is what, and now how long am I going to have to deal with it? Like, and that doesn't feel very good at all, and it actually feels quite terrible. And so that's awful. And so I said there was no amount of money, put $1 million outside of my door. There were times where, like, if I didn't want to do that, if I didn't love what I was doing and I didn't really love the people that I was doing it with, like, it was hard. It was really hard to get out of bed. And so, yeah, there are days that you love doing your job more than others. Hopefully the people around you They're going to help you want to get out and do it and do the best you can. But ultimately, the daily habits you create of wanting to be the best, like honing your craft, the expectations that other people are depending on you and relying on you so that you can pass off something better to someone else and make their job a little bit easier. Like those are the daily habits and things that are going to lead to that purpose that you have. The people, the passion, the purpose, like any institution that has those, any workplace that has those, like you're going to have ultimate success. So part of it's getting the right people, because not everybody's going to be great, and there's people you have to deal with that are terrible. Having the right passion and understanding of, hey, what it is we're doing and what the overarching goal is, not just maybe the monotony of each and every day. What's our high-level goal, and then how can I get a little better at what I'm trying to do today to be able to hone my skills so that people, when they look at it and there's collaborations, they'll be able to identify that to be able to possibly have my own career advancement. Like those things are really important because that's going to give you, the ability to move forward, and you're going to have a desire and purpose to move there. And like I said, that ultimately leads to the purpose that what is it you're providing? Like what is the service that you're providing at a low level and then at a high level too? And it's an unbelievable thing to be part of Ohio State. I love this place despite all of its flaws. There are a lot. I mean, as everybody in here will sit there and tell you, when you come in, I mean, not everything's going to be perfect each and every day, but it's not the buildings. It's the people in here that get it done. So when you wake up and you come in and you realize that nobody's talking to you because you might be the problem, try not to be the problem. Maybe if you know someone that is the problem, politely pull them aside and be like, listen, you're really making this terrible for everybody to come to work. We want to help you. How can I help you enjoy what you're doing more? Because I don't enjoy coming in when I have to deal with you on a daily basis. So how can I help you more? Maybe it's just simple as, hey, you get 2 cups of coffee when you walk in and you hand it to that person. That might start their day off a little bit better. And then it's going to spur a conversation. And that communication is going to lead to a little collaboration. You're going to be better at what you're doing. You're clearly define the expectations of what the workplace is supposed to be, and that's going to be the culture that you're going to want. And that's the type of place that you like showing up to. And so try to work on that each and every day. Enjoy it, be around it, and live in it. And that's going to be able to make your days a little bit better with clearer purpose. So I wrapped up a little early intentionally to make sure everybody had time and to make sure if there are any questions. I know I was putting some of you asleep a little bit, which I apologize. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the memories. I enjoyed watching you play. Is there one player that you lined up against that you were like, oh my God, toughest guy, college or pro?
One guy that I lined up against, college or pro, that was the toughest player I ever to play against. Probably here at Ohio State was a guy who I played with, who played on offense, and that was Maurice Clarett. He was really good. Like, Maurice was a stud. And I know that there were some negative feelings and things that happened with him, but we were in the same class, and I looked at this guy when I was a freshman, and I thought, well, if he's what you need to be to play here, I might have went to the wrong school. Like, because this dude, I've never seen a human being like this guy. And it was great to be able to be a part of him. We're good friends now, and I'm glad to see that he's done better. But he was the guy who, when I was 18 years old, I thought I had no chance of being able to do this. But it was awesome because you know what? I ended up working with him. I ended up working out him, AJ Hawk, and myself. We were our lifting group our freshman year, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question on that. So how did you deal with that?
How did I deal with that? So I found him, and I knew the other guy who I knew worked as hard as I did, who I was working out with, and said, okay, this is the guy and that was our little lifting group. So I said, if I have any chance of trying to be able to play with this guy and eventually drag him to the ground, I'm going to have to try to get on his level. And so he was awesome. He was a great teammate. Like I talked about the communication and collaboration. Like, he was one of the biggest drivers because he knew, like, hey, the better practices we have, they're going to be harder, to be more physical, but that's ultimately going to make our team better. So I want to have these guys be as good as they can around us. And so if we were willing to put in the work, he was coming along, and he worked, despite what people have said, like, he worked his butt off in practice and in the weight room. Like, I love the guy. And so he helped make me better because of that. So that's how to overcome it. I usually try to find the person who I think is the best, and I try to get with them and get everything I can out of them.
I'm just curious, what was your everyday life like around Jerry Jones?
Are you a Cowboys fan? Okay.
I hear a lot of stories, but
Jerry's great for the players. I don't know if I'd want to coach for him because Jerry's a great marketer. He's a great owner. He's done a better job as a general manager acquiring talent because his son's been more involved now. The problem is that nobody likes to have their authority subverted. And so you have your players, you have like your coach, front office, and then you have your owner. And so Jerry had created a conduit where you could just bypass those other guys and go directly to him, and none of the coaches like that. And so it's a tough spot. But I enjoyed Jerry. He's always been very good to me. And I just know that coaches and him, like strong ones that are really good, like Bill Parcells and him, butted heads because Bill's like, they're not going to you. Like, they're not going to cry to mom. Like, they're not going and crying to mom because they know you'll listen to them. He's like, this is the tough love that they need. So they need to come to me. Someone have their hand up right here. I'm sorry, I thought it. Yes, sir. What do I do now to manage my daily goals? So, like I said, I want to thank all of you. I get up, I go work out at the Woody Hayes facility every morning at about 5:30. I've got 4 kids. So got up before this, went over there, got a little workout in. And I try to set things in life. Like, I was great. I got to achieve most of my goals I set when I was younger by the time I was 30. And so that's good and bad because then when I'm 30, I have to figure out, well, what the hell do I want to do now the rest of my life? Like, I'm pretty healthy. I don't think I'm going to die in the next, 5 years, hopefully. So what am I going to try to do now? And so I tried to set some new stuff, whether it was, being involved with the media was something that was kind of always a dream of mine. So this year I was able to, this last year, start to work with ESPN. They brought me back, and so they've liked what I've done there. That's been fantastic. And then I also, I love this place. I get to help out with the football team, I get to help out with my dad's team, teaching here. Like, that's always something that was a big part of a big piece of my life, was being able to try to give back. And I enjoy watching, use the term young people now, because I look at these guys and the parents are coming through, and I start talking to the parents now more than I talk to the players, because the parents are 40, early 40s, and I'm getting to that stage. I'm closer to them than I am to the kids, but I enjoy watching them be able to improve, be able to have success, and watching them kind of figure it out, kind of like I did, because I know what that process is like. And so it's fun. It's awesome to be able to give back in that way. Yes, sir. Well, there was one. It wasn't in Fisher. It was in Gerlach. It was in one of the top 3rd floor. Yeah, up there in the little conference room. It was leaking in 2013. It's leaking. I walked back there the other day. And that's the thing. Like I said, my dad always would tell us, you put the work in early, you do things right, and then it doesn't have to happen. I know that if everybody in this room could be on the building and planning commission when things are designed, things might be a little bit different. Because then it's not as much maintenance throughout the long haul. But that's just part of it. Sometimes you're going to be given a steamy pile, and you've got to try to figure out how to make that thing work. It doesn't feel all that good. It feels pretty terrible because I don't know if you'll ever be able to get it right again. And that's just the reality of it. So I said the communication needs to be high, and it's tough when you're dealing with institutions this size to be able to get everybody on the same page. There's a lot of people with big egos, and sometimes people don't want to listen to other people. But if you can communicate, you can foster those relationships. That's what really makes it work. Yes, sir. Okay, so technology versus people, because that's a great question right there. Technology, as it continues to move on, it continues to grow and take over more and more of what we do. It's great, and there's a lot of things that it can ultimately help with. But I'm here to tell you this, there's no substitute for human interaction. I mean, I look around this room, I would say, how many of you are over 30 years old? It's probably about everybody in here. Okay, how many of you have talked to somebody that's 25 years old? Yeah. Okay, whether that's a child, niece, nephew, someone you work with, someone you're around. I enjoy working with this, but the problem is if you stare at a screen all day, that screen doesn't stare back at you. Okay, it doesn't communicate back, and so the nonverbal communication skills of talking, and this is something that we're battling with the players. And I've watched some of the coaches grab guys' face masks, and we're gonna look eye to eye when we're communicating. That's how I know that you're listening to me. Okay, you wandering off and you just deciding when the conversation is done. I'd never seen anything like that. And so he's I'll let you know when the conversation is over, okay? You'll know from me. And so as much technology we have and the watching film and the communication and going to the Buckeye link and all these great things that we have, you can get on the app, you can see everything that's going on, you can get any of your information you want from your W-2s, your insurance stuff. Like, that's all well and good. And it makes your life a little bit easier in some stretches. But at the same point in time, there is no substitute for human communication and, like, being somebody that can talk to other people to get things done. Because unless you become the last human in the world and you're dealing with only robots, you're always going to have to deal with people, okay? And so, like I said, I love it. It's great. It's the same way in the NFL. But the best coaches leverage the communications with their personal skills. All right, well, if that is it, I'm going to pass it back off to Mark. I appreciate all you listening here. I appreciate the Warriors who stood up here the entire time. I didn't even see you guys shift your weight all that much. Your back was probably locking up. I even left Mark about 4 extra minutes, so hopefully maybe that's 4 extra minutes that you guys will get back. But I appreciate being in here. Thank you, and OH.